The Apostle John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, spent much of the time in his gospel showing the deity of Jesus, which ultimately led to a charge of blasphemy and the crucifixion of Jesus upon the cross. But in chapter 5, we read a wonderful story of mercy and grace, at least for some people. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, in Aramaic called Bethsaida, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these laid a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. This pool is where all who needed healing would come for a chance to be healed. One man in particular was an invalid for 38 years. Can you imagine that? 38 years of living a life with a broken body. We don't know if he was born with this condition or if he had been whole at one time and suffered an illness or an accident that left him unable to walk. But we do know that for almost 4 decades, this man longed to be healed. So he made his way to the famed pool. The pool that when the waters were stirred with healing power, the first who stepped into it would be healed of their infirmity by the power of God. On this particular day, this man was here with a great multitude of people who also needed healing. But most had an advantage over him. They had legs to rush them towards the pool as soon as the water stirred. I wonder, where were this man's friends, his family, his loved ones? Where were the ones who could carry his burden, be his legs for him, and rush him into the pool when the water stirred? We read about friends of a man who in Luke 5 cared so much for their friend that they lowered him down through the roof of a house where Jesus had been teaching because the multitude was too thick for them to bring him to Jesus through the front door to be healed. We're not told why this man was alone, but in spite of being beaten to the pool every time the water stirred, this man was still there, waiting for the multitude of others who needed healing too. When Jesus saw him laying there and knew he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be healed?" What a question! Everyone there wanted to be healed of something. But it's in this man's response that our heart goes out to him. The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am going, another steps down before me." And just like that, Jesus, the one John said who made all things, simply says, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." And you know what? He did. Sure, it was on the Sabbath day. Sure, Jesus would catch heat for healing the man on this day. But in that moment, a man who had suffered for 38 years received the grace and healing from his God, who came and sat beside him on that day. No friends or legs were needed, just Jesus. What a wonderful story of grace and love, right? But did you notice that when Jesus left, there was no mention of him healing the multitude, those who were also suffering, the blind, lame, and paralyzed? We never read of Jesus healing all those in this crowd. He may have, and John just didn't record it. And we do know, now there were also many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books to be written. But it is just as likely that this man was the only one whom Jesus healed at the pool on this occasion. Why? Who knows? Does it take away from the grace and mercy he showed this broken man? Certainly not. Jesus never came to take away all the pain, illness, poverty, or suffering in the world. But what he did come to do was to bring salvation to a spiritually sick and dead people so that all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Why does Jesus sometimes heal and sometimes leave people in their broken bodies? I can't answer that. But I do know that while he may or may not heal us physically, our God will always do the greater service in healing us from our sins and giving us the grace to live with him for eternity. And yes, with a little patience and at a time of his choosing, he will one day take our broken body and give us a perfect, everlasting one. For this perishable body must put on imperishable, and this mortal body must put on immortality. This is the promise we all have, and on that day, none will be left broken at the pool.